a quiet guy's loud silence. I never pictured myself ending up with someone like Jessica. She was this larger-than-life personality, always the center of attention, radiating energy that pulled people in like moths to a flame. The woman could strut into any room and have every head spinning her way without breaking a sweat. I was more like the background decor, quiet, reserved, nose buried in textbooks or grinding away at freelance graphic design gigs. Flashy outfits? Not my vibe. Social scenes? Only if I had no choice. Yet, somehow, Jessica's radar picked me up, and that flipped my whole world upside down. We crossed paths in a bustling university cafe. I was hunched over my laptop, racing to meet a deadline for a logo design, my eyes practically glued to the screen. Out of nowhere, Jessica sauntered over, plopped herself down uninvited and tossed out, "Yo, dude, you look like you haven't blinked since breakfast. You good, or is that screen your new BFF?" Her voice was all sass, her grin pure mischief, and that bold, teasing spark just hit me like a lightning bolt. I was hooked, plain and simple. At first, it felt like I'd stumbled into a dream. Why would someone as vibrant as Jessica, who thrived in the spotlight, give a second glance to a wallflower like me? But she did, and she yanked me into her whirlwind of a life. House parties pumping with music, last-minute road trips to nowhere, music festivals buzzing with energy. For a while, I was all in. Jessica had this way of making me feel noticed, like I mattered, like I was someone worth wanting. But slowly, almost too subtly to catch at first, things started to shift, and I didn't see the storm coming until it was already overhead. It began with little digs, the kind that seemed playful but left a mark. At one of her fancy get-togethers, she'd smirk and say to her posse, "Meet Daniel, my personal Google search bar," while giving my cheek a patronizing pinch, like I was some cute kid she was showing off. Or at a club, she'd toss out, "Oh, Daniel doesn't dance, guy's too precious, might sprain something." Her friends would cackle, and I'd force a chuckle, telling myself it was just her quirky sense of humor, nothing to get bent out of shape about. I mean, that's just Jessica, right? Always working the room, always cracking wise. But those jabs started piling up, and each one stung a little sharper. Jessica lived for the spotlight, and I started to feel like a prop in her one-woman show. Her crew even started calling me her boyfriend accessory, like I was some trendy handbag she'd picked up on sale. They'd snicker about how I always ended up on the edge of group selfies, or how my voice sounded like I was narrating a PBS special. One night at a swanky dinner party, Jessica leaned across the table and announced to everyone, "Y'all, you gotta hear Daniel's hot take on fonts. It's like I'm married to a walking TED Talk, right?" The table erupted in laughter, and I just stared at my mashed potatoes, my face burning. I tried talking to her about it later, real gentle, saying, "Babe, being the punchline every time doesn't feel great." She just rolled her eyes, like I'd suggested the sky was green, and snapped, "Oh, come on, Daniel, I'm just keeping it light. Don't be such a buzzkill, geez." That same night, she posted a photo of us on social media with the caption, "Chillin', with my little Professor Nerdface blowing a kiss #hubbygoals." I should have walked away right then, but I didn't. I was in too deep, maybe not even in love with her anymore, but with the idea that someone as dazzling as Jessica could pick someone like me. I kept hoping she'd see me, not just the caricature she'd built in her head. The breaking point hit 3 months later at her best friend Agnes's rooftop birthday bash downtown. I wasn't exactly hyped to go, crowds like that weren't my scene, but Jessica laid on the charm thick. "Come on, babe," she cooed, "these folks are actually cool, not like the usual snobs. You'll have a blast." Spoiler, they were worse. We rolled up late, the music thumping so loud it rattled my bones, drinks flowing like a river, and her friends already half-lit. I parked myself near the bar, nursing a soda, trying to blend into the vibe while Jessica worked the crowd like she was running for mayor. She was in her element, dancing, laughing, flitting from one clique to the next, all eyes on her. I stayed put, offering polite smiles to anyone who glanced my way, feeling like a fish out of water. Then, from across the terrace, Jessica's voice cut through the noise like a megaphone. "Daniel, get your butt over here." I shuffled over, already dreading what was coming. She slung an arm around me, grinning at her circle of friends like she was about to drop a killer one-liner. Guys, this is my genius hubs. He whipped up this totally weird ad campaign last week. What was it, babe? Something about fonts, right? Before I could even open my mouth, she plowed on. No, for real, he thinks fonts are, like, super hot. He'll stare at Helvetica and practically swoon. The group burst into laughter, louder than necessary, and I stood there, my face on fire, managing a weak smile while my throat closed up. Jessica locked eyes with me and doubled down. Oh, don't be all shy now, babe. Spill the tea on your font obsession, it's so adorable. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. One of her buddies even mocked me in a fake nerdy voice. Ugh, the kerning on this invite is straight up criminal. More laughter. Jessica leaned in close and hissed, "You're being weird again, Daniel. Loosen up, for Pete's sake." I didn't say a word. I turned, walked back to the bar, and stayed there for the rest of the night, invisible to her as she flitted around like a social butterfly. The next morning, I slipped out of her apartment before she woke up. No note, no text, nothing. I ignored her calls that afternoon, the next day, the next week. I wasn't trying to play games or hurt her, I just needed to vanish for my own sake. The silence felt like a weight lifted, louder than any argument I could have started. Her messages started casual like, "Yo, where you at?" Then they turned confused, then worried, and finally apologetic. One read, "I didn't mean to make you feel small, babe. It was just jokes, I thought you were cool with it." But I hadn't been cool with it for months, I just didn't know how to say it without losing her. Funny thing is, staying quiet said it better than I ever could. Jessica's texts got longer, more desperate. She said she missed me, that she finally got how much I'd grounded her, made her feel secure. Apparently, even her friends called her out, saying, "Girl, you were kinda harsh to him sometimes." Isn't it wild how people only rethink their actions when you're not around to take the hits anymore? She begged to meet up, swearing it'd be different, that she just wanted to talk. But I wasn't the same guy she'd paraded around like a quirky sidekick. That Daniel was gone. I was rebuilding myself, hanging with friends who actually heard me out, laughing on my own terms, designing not just logos but a life where I didn't feel shrunk down to a punchline. I never responded, not out of spite, but because some things don't need a big finale. Jessica laughed at me like I was just a prop in her show, but when I slipped away without a word, she finally felt the weight of losing something real. And that silence? It was the loudest thing I ever said.